Yeah, this is one of the 12 San Francisco Walgreens that are set to shut their doors for good in February, and customers tell me stores like this are neighborhood anchors. San Franciscans throughout the city are learning their local Walgreens is one of those closing its doors for good next month.
There's a lot of people who use Walgreens, who go to Walgreens not only for prescriptions, but for a lot of things. It's just really a shame.
Walgreens announced it would be closing 12 stores in San Francisco in the final week of February, with a statement reading in part, quote, increased regulatory and reimbursement pressures are weighing on our ability to cover the costs associated with rent, staffing, and supply needs. It is never an easy decision to close a store. Off camera, workers say the pharmacy and retail chain is telling them the pharmacy side of the business is underperforming. Customers also point to rampant theft at some locations. We captured this video of a man walking out of the Geary Walgreens with a suitcase full of beer and food that workers inside were saying he hadn't paid for. Customers say the Blockbuster and Ross that had been here at the Geary Mall are already long gone.
And this is this building is a whole block long. What are they going to do with this building? It's empty except for Domino's. Like, what are they going to do here? It's just going to be an eyesore. It's just going to attract more trash and more people and more. Anyway, I was pretty bummed when I read the news this morning.
Supervisor Shaman Walton said 2 of the Walgreens locations that are closing are in his community and will deprive San Franciscans of access to medications they need and retail options.
We obviously have communities of color. We have seniors and folks with disabilities that rely on these pharmacies. Not having these right in our community is going to have a devastating effect.
Supervisor Walton said he has been in discussion with Walgreens and said the company has made it clear that these closures are coming and that there's no room for delays or negotiations. He said he's already reaching out to the new mayor. And
all right, guys, so once again, we got to talk about California and the cost of voting for Democrats and progressive lunatics. What happens is that businesses leave due to the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs policies that are implemented by progressives and Democrats, okay? We're in San Francisco this time, in which you have Walgreens closing down 12 stores, okay? So they're closing down the stores and the residents are upset, okay? They're in shock at the fact that Walgreens is closing down. Now, Walgreens is citing regulatory burdens and issues in regards to why they're closing down. That, and also as well too, crime. We're going to talk about crime. But first I want to talk about regulatory stuff, right? Because essentially this is happening due to the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. The piece of legislation that Democrats claim would reduce inflation, even though it did not reduce inflation. If anything, it may have contributed to inflation. But also on top of that, due to some of the mandates in the Inflation Reduction Act, essentially, that has caused these pharmaceutical companies to struggle. Profit margins were already thin, and due to the fact that there is increased regulations, increased administrative burden, that has made it a lot harder when it comes to keeping up with the costs associated with running a pharmacy. And furthermore, without getting too technical, because that's not what this video is about, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I just want you guys to understand that the Inflation Reduction Act, because it has lowered what Medicare is willing to pay for drugs, that indirectly has put pressure on private insurers and pharmacy benefit managers, the people who actually negotiate the reimbursement rates that these pharmacies receive. Essentially, that has reduced the rates across the board, which has basically made it a lot harder for these pharmacies to survive. Okay. And honestly, when it comes to smaller pharmacies like mom and pop pharmacies, due to the Biden administration and this piece of legislation, it has made it damn near impossible for smaller pharmacies to absorb these losses. And that's why you're seeing so many small pharmacies close up. Now, you have big pharmacies like Walgreens, for example. They're having to close up shop in places that are riddled with crime because they may be able to survive in rich neighborhoods with less crime despite the additional costs associated with having to comply with the Democrats and their federal policies, the Inflation Reduction Act. But when you add crime on top of that, right, if you put one of these pharmacies in a neighborhood with crime, that basically is what causes them to go out of business, right? So again, it's a combination of both. And I want you guys to understand that because it's important to understand that Democrats, once again, are showing that they're anti-free market, pro-criminal policies ultimately end up hurting the poor, okay? And it doesn't really hurt the rich, okay? Which is what they claim that they do. They're trying to go after the rich, but no. What they do is that they actually end up hurting the poor, and the rich benefit. The rich get the benefits of having the reduced drug prices and easy access to the pharmacies in their neighborhoods. But the poor, the neighborhoods that are riddled with crime, nah, they don't get that because those pharmacies are leaving. Those jobs are leaving. They don't get the benefit. So again, that's what's happening here. Now, again, these San Francisco residents, they are shocked to see that these pharmacies are leaving their community. Let's get into it.
With graffiti covering the windows and the front entrance still boarded up, this Walgreens in the Potrero Hill neighborhood is one of 12 locations closing for good across San Francisco.
No, we need this. This is the closest pharmacy.
Remember, it was only 2 months ago when a car rammed into the front entrance of this location. Construction crews at the time said it was an unsuccessful attempt at breaking into the ATM and part of a concerning trend in the Bay Area.
It's disheartening, to say the least, yeah.
In a statement, Walgreens called the closures necessary and said increased regulatory and reimbursement pressures are weighing on our ability to cover the costs associated with rent, staffing, and supply needs. Although the company made no mention of crime or shoplifting as the reason, neighbors say they see it all the time.
I mean, I get it. I've seen horrible things happen in here. Like people stealing things, just coming in with bags and just going into their bag. I've seen kids, I've seen homeless people doing it, I've seen people that seem like they don't need to be doing it.
The Potrero Hill location is the same one, tied to a major Walgreens crime spree over the span of several months last year, which resulted in the arrests of 8 suspects, some as young as 12 years old. Wow. San Francisco police said the group is accused of committing 23 thefts over 4 months, stealing more than $84,000 in Walgreens merchandise.
Wow.
We need this. We need this. We need this, just in case we don't feel good and we want to sit our kids down to get toilet paper, soap, all that good stuff. It's sad.
You got to change the way you vote. You got to change the way you vote because as I've explained to you guys, this is happening because of Democrat policies. At the federal level, the Inflation Reduction Act, in which, again, I'm pretty sure a vast majority of these people probably voted for Biden, okay? They voted for the Democrats at the federal level, okay? And when it comes to the local and state level, they voted for the soft on crime policies. Now, again, California is trying to get tougher on that. But, yeah, it's going to take some time for some adjustments to be made. Now, they did in this election kick out London Breed and replace London Breed with a new mayor, Mr. Daniel Lurie, who is going to be leading the city into the future. Now, he ran on trying to fix the issue of homelessness, crime, trying to economically revitalize some of these neighborhoods. But we're going to see, right? We're going to see if this actually works out. All I know is that it is going to take a massive effort. These people are going to have to change their votes. They're going to have to start putting people in place who actually have some common sense. They have to get tough on crime, and they're going to have to roll back these regulations. I'm telling you, that is what's driving these businesses out of these cities, okay? That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Closures include the same location on Market Street, where Banko Brown was shot and killed by a Walgreens security guard in April of 2023 during what police called a shoplifting incident.
I mean, toothpaste is locked up. I get it if like really high price items are locked up, but now it's like pretty much everything. And the people that work here are really jaded, rightfully so.
And Walgreens confirmed with us that all 12 of these locations will close between February 24th and the 27th.
Yeah. So you see that, you heard that. Okay. They're upset. They're mad, right? That this is happening. But again, who's to blame? Democrats. Let me show you guys something, right? This is the stock of Walgreens and CVS. Okay. Check this out. The Inflation Reduction Act passed. I think it was signed into law by Biden in August of 2022. Since August of 2022, it's been nothing but downhill for CVS and Walgreens, right? This is what regulation does, guys. This is what overregulation does. Now, again, Democrats, they say, well, we're doing it to try to lower the price of prescription drugs. Well, what happens when you do that? when you do that, when you have the government get in the way of the free market, what happens is that the free market responds with store closures due to the fact that they can't operate profitably, right? Except in rich neighborhoods with low crime. So when you have these liberal cities that have high rates of crime in some of these neighborhoods, what happens is that these pharmacies already are being squeezed due to the regulatory impact that has occurred due to the Biden administration and their regulations. What happens is that when you add crime on top of that and having to deal with theft and things of that nature, which also make it harder to operate and to be profitable, then that's when you get these massive shutdowns. So now those poor people that Democrats were trying to help, right? They suffer because now they don't have any pharmacies in their neighborhoods. They have to travel a much further distance in order to get their prescription drug. And as I've explained to you guys, due to the regulatory burden of running a pharmacy, it's not like a mom and pop shop. Some small entrepreneur can just come in and say, hey, I'm going to start a pharmacy and replace Walgreens or CVS. No. They can't operate either because it costs too much. Okay? It costs too much. So I want people to understand this is the consequence of Democrat policies. There are pros and cons. This is what I try to tell you guys. There are no solutions to anything in life, right? There are only pros and cons. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What are you willing to accept? What are you not willing to accept? Okay. All right. You want to overregulate the pharmaceutical industry to lower prices? All fine and good. But you got to accept that some of these pharmacies are going to close up, that mom and pop shops can't operate due to the regulations. And guess what? They're going to close in the poor neighborhoods where it is harder for them to survive due to an increase in crime. And they don't want to be tough on crime because they don't want to lock up black folks, right? So again, that is what happens. And that's what's happening right there. That's what you're seeing. That's why all these pharmacies are closing up. Straight up Democrat policies. Democrats have straight up killed the pharmaceutical industry. And it affects the poor the most. That's the crazy part about it. The people that they claim they're trying to help. These are the people that are hurting the most. Happens every single time. Just like inflation. Well, let's spend all this money to help the poor, right? But who benefits the most from inflation? The rich. Why is that? Due to asset inflation. The rich are rich because they own assets. So again, they benefit from inflation to a certain degree. But the poor, on the other hand, who by definition don't own as many assets because they're poor, okay? They're living off of fixed income, and that fixed income is hard to live off of when prices are going up and you're not benefiting from the asset inflation, and you have to pay for groceries and the cost of everyday goods and services. Yeah, it's going to hit the poor the hardest, okay? And that is what you've seen as a result of Democrat policies. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.